Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So today we will be doing MCOC 2020 Champion Awards. That's right, we will be awarding champions with their own prestigious special titles. Vast majority of these will be exclusively geared towards 2020 champions. However, the most prestigious, the most high honors every single champion is eligible for. First off, just so you guys know the structure of the video, we will have 10 different awards to give, and we will have several candidates, and only one of them will end up getting the reward. First category: 2020 biggest ramp up damage potential. And categories are as follows. Sorry, not categories. The nominees are as follows. First up, we have Guardian. We all saw, I believe, Thekiryu's clip with Guardian at rank 3 6-star, 99 charges, in like sandbox environment, dealing like what, 7 or 15 million level 2. So Guardian is definitely up there. But that is a very, very special sandbox environment. Next up, we have Sasquatch. I believe the evidence for Sasquatch damage potential was kindly provided to all of us by Brian Grant, where he went and stacked up a huge ton of raptures on Realm of Legends Wolverine and dropped a massive level 2. Which I believe he stated was the hardest hitting level 2 he has ever done in the game. Oh, definitely Sasquatch has a huge damage potential. And the third nominee is Professor X, because Professor X damage is close to unlimited. Well, in theory anyways. He realistically probably does have some sort of prowess damage cap, but nothing's really been able to survive for more than 20, 30, haven't seen higher than that. And Professor X is also the winner, because his damage ramp up is not just one hit wonder, it would continuously maintain. And first of all, we haven't really had the footage of how much a single level 2 would do, even though I do personally believe it would compete with the first two nominees. But one thing's for certain: Professor X, it wouldn't be just the one level 2, to the point where you max out his prowess charges or reach whatever hap he theoretically has. You can keep on bursting it out and out and out again, and you should theoretically be able to, well, do huge, at most massive burst amounts of damage. Right. Now, the next category also is going to be damage related, and the next category is going to be DPS. For those of you who are not aware, DPS means damage per second, and in damage per second category we do have 3 nominees. As it has been pointed out to me, Tigra actually has absolutely enhanced damage per second should she be able to perform her playstyle and stack the raptures. But Tigra is definitely one of the most capable damage dealing champions in the game if you can play her well enough and play her perfectly. Next up, we're going to be headed towards... where is that little guy? I think I should keep sorting out by classes. Cosmic Ghost Rider. Cosmic Ghost Rider has some of the most insane damage output with very simple playstyle and very limited ramp up. And he definitely is the overall damage king, therefore he should also be in the running for 2020 DPS award. And I believe then the next candidate that we can have is going to be Longshot. Now, Longshot's damage per second output quite obviously significantly depends on opponents' buffs, but even if opponents do not gain any buffs at all whatsoever, if you are able to play him with pretty much exclusively dropping only heavy attacks, he has one of the highest damage outputs in the entire game per hit. So who is 2020 DPS champion overall? And I think it's quite obvious that it has to be Cosmic Ghost Rider, because Cosmic Ghost Rider unlocks his damage output in pretty much any single matchup that you can imagine, as long as you can armor break the opponent. So he isn't reliant on opponent having buffs or you being able to punish opponents' special or heavy attacks with the heavy attacks of your own. Therefore, he not only has, in my opinion, the highest damage per second of any champion released in 2020 for short, medium-length fights, but he also has the most practical delivery method from the other two champions mentioned. Next up, most hated 2020 defender. And we're gonna start off with a monkey that can't be knocked down. This guy has taken dozens of scalps in Alliance War. We have seen the video evidence how quickly one mistake turns sour. His guaranteed critical hits with the chance of shrugging off stuns and with the chance of evade quite often ends up very badly for any single one of us who isn't paying 100% of their attention 100% of the time in the fight. So Hitmonkey definitely is an annoying defender to deal with. Then we have possibly the ugliest character ever created, Canadian Mojo Manchild lookalike. I mean Mojo, sorry, my bad there. And everyone hates passive degeneration, especially when combined with Mystic Dispersion, and especially when very little is in your control, because his prompts are random and you never know what you're gonna get and whether you're gonna be able to avoid triggering them. So overall, when the Flow Wars still existed, Mojo was a dread to go up against. And once Flow Wars ended, he didn't drift very far. He's still a staple Alliance War defender, and he's still a nightmare fuel in fight mechanics and on the eyes, so Mojo definitely has to be mentioned. And I think another champion that 100% has to be mentioned is, once again, Sasquatch. Sasquatch is a horrible champion to go up against because of his huge health pool, huge regeneration, frequently goes stun immune, frequently goes unstoppable, spams special attacks, and there's just a lot to deal with. But overall, I think no matter how beefy and annoying Sasquatch is, in 2020, we haven't gotten anything worse than Mojo. So Mojo goes home with the most hated defender award 2020. Next up, we're gonna move on to a little less positive note, and that is going to be the biggest letdown. The champion who had the most amount of hype and failed the hardest. We're gonna start with something that's still fairly recent in our memories, even though my personal opinion has started to change, because I do find Immortal Hulk somewhat fun and enjoyable champion. By no means in any manner of ways I can describe him as an amazing champion. Even if I can find him relatively enjoyable and fun to play, even if I personally, due to my personal quirks and affection to Hulk, would maybe consider ranking him up, it's definitely not because of his merits as a champion, but much more of his ability to play on my likeness for Hulk in the game. Fact of the matter is, when Hulk was announced, there were two camps of people. Some people who were upset because we didn't need another Hulk, and some people who were hyped because we finally had a chance to see a good Hulk. And it didn't happen. So it ended up being 100% disappointment across the board overall. And that is the Immortal Hulk. Then another champion that definitely disappointed beyond belief, even, you might say, is actually a champion that I don't have as a 5 or 6 star. I do have him as a 4 star somewhere, but he's hidden. Let's go. Another champion that disappointed all our feelings. Yeah, I don't have him as a 4 star as well. Whoops, just a 3 star, I guess. is Airwalker. Airwalker was Herald of Galactus, and he arrived in the game as Herald of Galactus, only for us to realize that when it comes to MCOC, Herald of Galactus is nothing to celebrate. When it comes to this game specifically, being a Herald of Galactus quite likely means you're gonna be a pile of rubbish. And I think it kind of solidified this popular opinion with the arrival of Airwalker. So Airwalker kind of marked a milestone, because when the Silver Surfer came out, it was like, you never know, it's Silver Surfer. It's just maybe an off chance. But then we saw Terrax, and then we saw Airwalker, and Airwalker looked like he could do something great. His abilities seemed complex, there was tons of power gain, his level 3 abilities seemed quite bonkers, and it all for naught. So Airwalker, I think, was definitely quite a huge disappointment, but I think there was no other bigger disappointment than Mr. Bucket himself, Nova. Nova is extremely popular character in Marvel, and there was huge amounts of hype, excited to see Nova being added to the contest, and he was coming early on in the year, and it just all seemed quite perfect for Nova to come in and be a staple in everybody's MCOC daily lives. Unfortunately, we got nothing from real Nova's abilities. It was neat that they're trying to working in these dashbacks as a source of power for him, but just shit. It's disappointing. And that is what this category is. I think everybody can unanimously say that after they played with Nova, you just felt disappointed. Definitely didn't reach the level of expectation that we all bestowed upon him. Next up, we're gonna go with the most desirable champion currently released in 2020. Nominees for the most desirable champions are gonna go with Sorcerer Supreme. She has managed to basically prove herself, in my opinion, as a third best Mystic champion in game. Quite unique, featured quite all over the chat rooms in different game modes, and as a frequent answer to a lot of problems. And I think a huge amount of people are currently hunting for her, or just already have her and enjoying her. The second one is going to be a mutant, and the second one is going to be Professor X. I think Professor X, not only he's an iconic character, he's also a champion that has much more implication than just his ability set, because his synergies are in fact game-changing. He can make any champion suicide-friendly, he increases special attack damage, he helps out a ton of other different champions, and Professor X is definitely one of those champions everybody wants to have. Maybe not necessarily because you want to play him all the time, but just so you can have these buffs for entire mutant class. And alongside Professor X, there is Apocalypse. And Apocalypse, again, brings a value of his own as a character, but quite undeniably, the biggest thing everybody always wants is to make Horsemen of Apocalypse, to buff their cool, amazing champions, and wreck even more face. Therefore, I believe any single person who doesn't have Apocalypse is pretty much very, very much interested to acquire Apocalypse, so that definitely makes Apocalypse extremely desired, and he should be the 100% the sure winner of most desirable champion of 2020, if not for the Cosmic Lava Lamp. There is something for people in big yellow numbers. There's something in people for tons of debuffs, and there's another something for ability to gain power and spawn special attacks. And Cosmic Ghost Rider just hit all of those pleasing strings in all of our minds. And it's not even about how good or bad he is. I personally strength to the view that Hyperion and Corvus Glaive are likely better champions overall, and more needed. But not Corvus, not Hyperion, not much else existing in this game is more fun to use, because this champion combines huge numbers with huge yellow numbers, big fury buffs, power gain, armor breaks, power locking the opponents, tons of cool stuff. And the fact that he is in fact a good, great champion makes it even better. Somehow the fact that it is a Punisher that's also a Ghost Rider, that's also a Galactus Herald, makes it even better. And I believe currently, pretty much any single player who doesn't have Cosmic Ghost Rider is looking to get a Cosmic Ghost Rider. So I do think that Cosmic Ghost Rider is the most desirable champion of 2020. And now we need to go from desire to being practical. Many champions released in 2020 have relatively complex playstyles, but quite often simplicity is what we need. We're not going to take Proxima Midnight in Alliance Quest all that often, even though she can hit hard or has access to True Strike or True Accuracy, and that is exactly what you're looking for. We're going to be taking a champion that's easier to use, that doesn't require too much skill, that doesn't require you to be fully alert of everything that's happening. A champion that you can just sort of bring in the fight and get the fight over with, have good results, so the champion also has to be effective. These are the definitions for most practical champions of 2020. So they have to be good champions, very simple to use with very base level of fight skill needed. Champions that you would want to bring to AQ if you're doing AQ at 6 a.m. first thing when you wake up. And nominations for most practical 2020 champions are, I'm going to start with Dragon Man. Dragon Man essentially is extremely simple champion. Start the fight, hit the opponent, get to level 3, get to level 3 again. If you want, drop some level 2s in between. Very little you have to do. Half of the thing has been done by Dragon Man. And obviously immunities, power gain, all that other good stuff make him extremely easy to use and a good champion overall. Another extremely practical champion is Guardian. Bring him in, drop a level 1 or drop a level 3 and drop a level 2 and the fight's over. Top of all of that, he has tons of utility, armor buffs, tons of resistances, so he is in fact a champion that you can just casually slap on your team without thinking too much about MCOC and finish out fights quickly enough with decent enough versatility. So definitely a very practical champion. But the most practical champion of 2020, I believe currently to be Immortal Abomination. Champion about as simple as it can get. Get Immortal Abomination, hit the opponent, get to level 2. That's it. Keep hitting the opponent, rest of the stuff is gonna happen. Drop level 1s as and when needed, pretty much. Very simple playstyle. In addition to that, some of the most easy to sustain champion abilities. Whenever you block the hits, opponents gain weakness buffs, and each next hit is gonna hit weaker. You gain increased physical resistance for every poison that you get, plus you regen throughout the entire fight. So basically as practical as you can make a champion. Only thing you care about is dropping that one special 2 and hitting the opponent. At the same time, fulfills quite a lot of roles, very tanky, very user-friendly, without suicides, access to plenty of debuffs, petrifies, what have you. Very great choice if you're doing Alliance Quest at 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning. I don't know. Alright, next category is quite simple, and that's best rework of 2020. And I'm not even going to stretch this out we all know it's Magneto. How we know it's Magneto? Because that is the better of two Magneto reworks, and White Magneto would be second best rework. We haven't gotten too many complete overhauls. Next year, this category I expect is going to be significantly more crowded. But for now, we only had Magneto as a complete overhaul, and Daredevil Hell's Kitchen. And we all know that Magneto is better. I don't need to say much else. Magneto basically is one of the best champions in game now. There's not much else to say. He went from complete rubbish to one of the must-have champions, in my opinion. So there we go, best rework. Now, Flashiest 2020 champion. And what I mean by flashiest, I mean big yellow numbers or tons of debuffs kind of combined. The champion that leaves the most impression when you use it. Champion that makes you most aware exactly what champion you're using, basically. And nominations for this one will be as follows. Storm Pyramid X. All of Storm Pyramid X skill kit is pretty much based around building up those prowess challenges. And whenever you do drop a special attack, there is certain set of expectation to hopefully see that big number, that big crit. Specials are lightnings or storms or whatever you have, definitely very flashy, plus damage over time debuffs, plus everything else that happens on. I do think that Storm is one of the flashiest champions of the year. Next up, we're gonna go to Black Widow Deadly Origins. Everything about this champion kind of seems exaggerated. She fights continuously with these batons in your hand. There are tons of ability triggers that could or could not happen. All the time you're trying to get Widow's insight activated, so that's another kind of like level to the fight that you're paying attention to, and that consistently has a notification there popping up for you. The whole idea is that you just keep on shocking the opponent. Even though you do not see huge yellow numbers, you do see a ton, and I mean a ton of red numbers, and that has a very distinctive feel. That's also very cool. I don't know, some people like 59 bleeds an opponent better than 59 crits in 59 hits, but it's each personal taste. But I doubt that anybody would disagree that Black Widow feels very specific and eccentric when you play, and she definitely leaves an impression. Whether you like it or hate it, it's definitely quite flashy, if you will. And another champion that makes you aware that you know exactly which champion you're using is definitely Longshot. Because he's one of those guys where very little happens up until a lot of things happen at the same time. It's kind of, if you imagine being employed, alien watching would be the best comparison. Your job is sitting and nothing and nothing and nothing and nothing and be completely bored and probably don't even believe aliens or whatever. And then all of a sudden, if you do see something, it's, oh my god, I just crapped my pants. What do I do now kind of moment. And that is Longshot throwing his level 2. It doesn't have any damage increase in his regular hits. Nothing is happening up until you're dropping that level 2. And then it's, oh my god, where did the opponent's health pool go? Right? So, Longshot definitely makes you aware that you're using Longshot whenever you drop your level 2. But I think overall, the most flashy, distinctive feel of all of the 2020 champions is definitely the Cosmic Ghost Rider. And I think at this point, that quite iconic level 2, where you have put in your preparation, where you have placed your armor breaks or failed seal the opponent, you have done your charge, your heavy attack before special 2 trick. And as that special attack that's in itself is very, very flashy, is dealing damage, you're just paying your closest attention to see how high those numbers are gonna go. Whether they're all gonna crit, how much damage does it do, and whether the opponent's dead. I think Cosmic Ghost Rider definitely has that biggest smile factor, where it's very enjoyable playstyle combined with very enjoyable result, combined with amazing insane animations and very high speed tempo fighting. And the best thing about Cosmic Ghost Rider is also, even if something doesn't go according to the plan, you're still doing well. You don't have to start all over. You're still gonna do a crap ton of damage. And yeah, I do think Cosmic Ghost Rider is probably the flashiest 2020 champion. But from flashiest, we're gonna go to a category that's quite similar, and that's gonna be smoothest and best champion animations. And once again, one of the nominees is Cosmic Ghost Rider, because it does feel extremely gratifying and satisfying to use him, and it kind of flows together extremely well. Another champion would be Black Widow Deadly Origins with those 7-hit combos. It kind of feels clunky for some. For me personally, I do enjoy it. I do like it a lot, but we do have to talk about some other awesome champion animations. And I think one of the mentions definitely here have to be Airwalker. Airwalker has arguably the coolest level 3. In addition to that, his heavy attack charge mechanic into his special attacks, plus all of the other animations, and the fact that he's literally walking on air, definitely deserves some recognition. He might be a complete failure when it comes to the game's meta and his abilities, but when it comes to his aesthetics, he's an absolute joy to look at, and not even that bad to use, to be honest. It's just that you're consistently annoyed by how bad he is. Another champion who has amazing animations, in my opinion, and that could again be personal bias here 100%, is Professor X. Professor X, everything about him, the way he dashes back, the way he dashes in at opponents, his special attacks is level 3, his animation start of the fight, just feels very distinctive. Feels awesome, and I think they quite nailed how it would be best to animate Professor X, such an iconic character. So Professor X definitely has a nomination here. But the best 2020 champion animation goes to Tiger, because Tiger, I think, is the most satisfying champion in the game to play right. There are few high-paced champions, such as Massacre, for instance, that also feel extremely, extremely gratifying when you learn to use them well. But I think Tiger kind of takes it to the next level. She does have higher skill cap than pretty much any other champion in the game. And if you play her well, there is no quite feeling like it, I think. So I think the best animations 2020 definitely has to go to Tiger. And the final, most important award, and I'll keep you guys here for half an hour, but the most important award, most used champion in 2020. Champion that basically goes everywhere. And the nominations here, none of these are 2020 champions though, but they are still the most used, the most day-to-day friendly, needed, amazing champions, are pretty much gonna be the Horsemen of Abyss plus Warlock. So we have Human Torch. Human Torch has managed to chip a hugely popular spot for himself in 2020, partially due to Abyss, partially to how good he is in good matchups. And if you can bring in 5 champions, why one of them shouldn't be Human Torch, right? So Human Torch is so often on everybody's questing teams that I think he deserves a spot here. Another champion is Dr. Doom. Dr. Doom has single-handedly seized control of an entire class, and if you need a Mystic champion, 9 times out of 10 you will by default just take in Dr. Doom and not think about anything else. And another thing that was quite dominant for Mystic class was that you didn't really use Mystic champions as your general questing or day-to-day champion. You use Mystic champions when you needed a Mystic champion. Dr. Doom, I think, is one of those very, very few Mystic champions ever that is a legitimate first option for many fights. The best option that people just go to by default instead of picking Corvus or Warlock or whoever. They can go with Dr. Doom. Dr. Doom is nominated for the most used champion in 2020. Then we have Warlock, the most popular Alliance War champion with Dr. Doom. Both of them basically were first and second. And Warlock is just like a utility machine. If you're gonna have to go in a tricky, difficult quest, eyes closed, not knowing what you're gonna face, there is very, very good chance that, well, all of the champions that I mentioned thus far are gonna be with you. So Warlock's definitely up there as well. But the most used 2020 champion, therefore, let's say the overall winner of MCOC 2020, he would be the guy that gets the biggest state trophy, basically. Nick Fury. And it's quite ridiculous the amount of work this guy can put in. And I think the best way I can describe how heavily, at least I personally rely, use, and play Nick Fury is that more than 3 times within last month, even though I have rank 5 5-star and rank 3 6-star Nick Fury, I wanted to have another 5-star or a 6-star or whatever. Whether to use or whether for synergies. But this is the only champion that I have ranked up as a 5 and 6-star. And I'm consistently waiting for a copy to be free, whether from Alliance Quest or Alliance Force, so I can go and make a video. I used him yesterday to kill White Magneto miniboss, for example. Yes, there is power snack, and yes, he's bleed immune, but I just entered the fight with life model decoy still active, dexed back, triggered power snack, let White Magneto hit me, that destroyed my life model decoy, through 2 level 1s, and completely ignored the fact that he had mighty charge and whatever else he had, because I went unblockable, I dealt shitload of damage, I can solo a miniboss. And I used him against Mephisto in a fight, even though he technically doesn't have immunities, but because he has double life and he deals huge amounts of bleed damage, you can just kind of work around it. And that's kind of like a definition of why Nick Fury is so good. He just seems to do whatever you need him to do, with the added benefit of having 2 lives, so you're never too worried and you just go and try things, and things often work out. And then there's obviously the synergies, and then there's obviously the damage output and everything else that makes him amazing. So, Nick Fury is the most used champion in 2020 on this channel. But that is it. I already kept you guys for far too long. I hope you guys enjoyed this quite obscene video. But if you did, let me know what categories should I include for next time. And I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya.